This was about 5 years ago, and it's the call that still keeps me up some nights. I've been a firefighter for a while now, but this one was different. It was just past midnight when the tones dropped. High-rise fire, multiple calls, smoke showing. That alone makes your stomach tighten. High-rise fires are bad news. By the time we were en route, dispatch updated. Fire reported on the 17th floor, occupants trapped. We rolled up and the scene was chaos. Residents were outside in pajamas, some barefoot, screaming up at the building. Smoke poured from open windows high above, and I could see flickers of orange on the upper floors. The building was old, one of those 1960s concrete towers, 20-plus stories, never properly renovated. My heart sank because I already knew. Sprinklers probably weren't working. We geared up, grabbed high-rise packs, and headed in. The lobby was a haze of smoke, alarms blaring. People were trying to push in, yelling that their families were still upstairs. Security guards were useless, panicking, not helping with evacuation. We found the stairwell and started up. 17 flights of stairs, hauling 60 pounds of gear, air tanks on our backs, hose line dragging behind us. The stairwell was already filling with smoke. My mask sealed tight, I could hear my own breathing, loud and mechanical. Around the 8th floor, we ran into the first group of residents. A family of 4, coughing, panicked, clutching each other. We pushed them down the stairwell, told them to keep moving, keep low. That's when I noticed the exit signs weren't lit. Emergency lighting wasn't working. It was just our helmet lamps cutting through the gray. By the 12th floor, visibility dropped to almost nothing. The smoke was so thick my flashlight beam looked like it was hitting a wall. The stairwell walls were hot to the touch. The fire was close. Finally, we reached the 17th. The stair door was warm, too warm. We forced it open and were hit with a wall of heat and black smoke that rolled over us like a living thing. The hallway was chaos, alarms screaming, people pounding on doors, flames licking out from an apartment halfway down the hall. "Two-man search," our lieutenant ordered. My partner and I masked up, dropped to our knees, and started sweeping apartments while the others stretched the line to the fire room. Inside one apartment, I found a woman collapsed in the hallway. Dragged her to the stairwell, passed her off, went back in. Another room, empty crib, toys scattered, TV still on. Smoke curling across the ceiling like black waves. No kid. My stomach knotted. Meanwhile, the fire was growing. You could hear it, the roar like a freight train in the walls. The heat was insane, even through full gear. It pressed down on you, every breath hotter than the last. Over the radio, water on the fire, advancing the line. The hose hissed, the sound of high-pressure spray echoing down the hall. Then came the screams. A man at the end of the hall had opened his apartment door and flames surged into his unit instantly. He staggered out, his shirt already burning. We tackled him, smothered the flames, but he was in bad shape, couldn't even walk. Another firefighter grabbed him, dragged him toward the stairwell. We kept moving, room to room, until my low-air alarm started ringing in my mask, that shrill beep that tells you you've got minutes left. We were 17 stories up, heat blasting, smoke, zero visibility. We had to make the call. One more room or bail out. We chose one more. Inside was a locked bedroom door. We forced it, and there they were, 2 kids, maybe 8 or 9, hiding under a blanket like it could keep the fire away. Their faces were wet with tears, eyes wide with terror. I grabbed one, my partner grabbed the other, and we hauled them out. The hallway was worse now. Flames were chewing through the ceiling, tiles crashing down. The hose team was barely holding it. My mask lens was starting to blur from the heat. We pushed into the stairwell, but it was jammed. People everywhere, pushing, shoving, screaming. Smoke was pouring down from above, choking the space. "Move! Move!" we shouted, trying to force a path. The kids clung to us like lifelines. Every step down felt like forever. My alarm beeped faster.
By the 10th floor, I was out of air. My mask sucked against my face, useless. I ripped it off and was hit with a blast of acrid smoke. Every breath burned, my throat raw. I put my mask on the kid instead, told him to keep it tight. I don't remember much of the last few floors. Just stumbling, dragging, coughing so hard I thought my lungs would come out. My partner was screaming at me to keep moving. Somehow, we made it out into the lobby, collapsing on the floor. Kids still in our arms. They lived. The woman I pulled out lived. The burned man, he didn't make it. We lost part of the 17th floor entirely. And the worst part, weeks later the fire investigation came back. Cause of ignition? Faulty wiring in an old unit. Cause of death? For the man, delayed renovations. And the sprinklers? Never maintained. Hadn't worked in years. All I could think was, we were climbing into a coffin that night, and luck was the only reason we crawled back out. To this day, whenever I pass a high-rise, I find myself staring up, counting floors, and thinking about how fast fire climbs. People think fire is just flames and heat, but it's the smoke, the panic, the darkness, the way it swallows everything before you even realize it. And when you're 17 floors up, you're trapped in hell with nowhere to run.
It was supposed to be routine. Cut fire lines, clear brush, keep the flames from reaching the town below. We'd done it before, nothing we hadn't trained for. But that night, when we rolled up on the ridge, the fire was already alive. Not just burning, alive. The horizon glowed orange, thick pillars of smoke clawed at the sky, and you could hear the crackle of timber splitting like bones in a furnace. The air itself shimmered with heat. We set to work fast. Chainsaws screamed, shovels bit into the dirt, and every swing felt like a race against time. Embers floated past like fireflies, stinging when they landed on bare skin. The smoke was thick enough to taste, bitter, chemical, like burning sap and plastic mixed together. We dug, we cut, we held the line. Then, the wind changed. 1 second, it was pushing the fire away from us. The next, it swung back like a whip. The flames doubled, leaping tree to tree as if they had wings. Smoke rolled over us so fast, it turned day into night. Radios crackled with voices, shouting different orders, none of them clear, all of them panicked. That's when we realized we weren't fighting the fire anymore, we were inside it. The flames had circled the ridge. Every direction we looked, walls of fire. Thick black smoke choked out the stars, and the heat pressed down like a furnace door. Someone yelled, "We're cut off!" And then the panic spread. We grabbed the radios, desperate, calling for air support, for trucks, for anyone. But all we got was static. The fire had swallowed the airwaves too. The trucks were on the other side of the ridge. We weren't getting to them. We were alone. That's when the choice came. The one no firefighter ever wants to make. Dig in or run. Some of us dropped to the dirt immediately, clawing at the ground with blistered hands, ripping open silver fire shelters. I remember seeing one of the guys fumbling with his gloves half melted, his face pale in the glow of the flames. Others argued we could outrun it, downhill, through the smoke, but the fire was faster than anything on 2 legs. I knelt there, the heat blistering my face, my throat raw from smoke, listening to the fire roar like a freight train. It wasn't just sound anymore, it was a vibration, rattling the ground beneath us, shaking in my bones.
Then it hit. The firestorm roared over the ridge, a wall of flame and wind. I dropped into my shelter, pressed flat against the earth as the heat sucked the air from my lungs. The sound was deafening, 1,000 jet engines screaming overhead. The shelter rattled, edges glowing as embers skittered across the surface. And all I could think was, this is it. This is how it ends. Minutes stretched forever. Some screamed, some prayed, some went silent. And then, silence. When I finally crawled out, the world was gone. Blackened tree trunks stood like gravestones. Ash blanketed the ground. Smoke hissed from smoldering roots. The sky was gray, dim, empty. A few of us stood, burned, coughing, alive. Others didn't. We stumbled for hours through the wreckage, until finally, through the haze, a faint dirt road appeared. We followed it, step by step, until we found our way back to the main highway. When the sun rose, pale and cold over the wasteland, it didn't feel like survival. It felt like we'd walked out of hell itself.
It was a call that started like any other. Just after midnight, the alarm went off. Commercial structure fire, multiple reports of smoke showing. We rolled out fast. The warehouse was only 10 minutes away, but you could already see the column of smoke miles before we got there. Black, heavy, stretching up into the sky like a storm cloud. When we arrived, the whole front face of the building glowed orange behind its cracked windows. Fire licked along the roofline, popping out through vents. The place was old, a textile storage facility that had been around since the 1960s, and the hydrant pressure in that part of town was always terrible. Not a good start. I still remember stepping out of the truck and feeling that wall of heat hit me, even from across the lot. It was like opening an oven, only bigger, heavier. The kind of heat that presses against your gear, seeping through the mask, making you sweat before you even step inside. The first crew stretched lines to attack from the exterior, but command ordered a primary search. The night watch had reported possible squatters seen around the property. That was enough for us to go in. Inside, visibility dropped to 0 almost instantly. Our flashlights cut through nothing but thick, roiling smoke. Every step crunched over broken glass, smoldering wood or melted plastic. The shelves inside towered over us, rows and rows stacked high with rolls of fabric, boxes, pallets, everything tinder dry. If one went up, the whole place would go. We moved in 2 by 2. My partner and I kept sweeping with our lights, calling out, listening for any sign of life. That's when we heard it. A voice. It was faint, but unmistakable. A man, calling out, a single word. Help. I froze. My partner tilted his head. Did you hear that? We called it in. Command confirmed no workers were supposed to be inside at this hour, but the voice came again, weak, echoing, human. Help. That was enough. We pushed deeper. The deeper we went, the hotter it got. The fabric rolls burned slow but dirty, pouring black smoke until you couldn't tell where the ground ended and the ceiling began. The beams overhead creaked, warped, groaned. Every sound was a warning, but that voice kept us moving forward. At one point, Harris, one of the newer guys, swore he saw a shadow darting through the smoke.
He broke formation for a second before we reeled him back in. His voice cracked through the mask. "Someone's in here." Then, the ceiling sagged. I'll never forget the sound, like a steel ship twisting apart. Loud pops, screams of metal. The roof bowed in places, and flakes of molten tar rained down. Command shouted over the radio, "All units, evacuate! Roof is compromised!" But Harris didn't move. He was convinced someone was only a few yards ahead. He shouted, "I hear him! I can get him!" and pushed further into the smoke. We tried to grab him. The lieutenant yelled, but before we could reach him, the roof gave way. The collapse came in waves. First, a beam dropped, shattering the shelves and sending sparks and flaming debris across the floor. Then a whole section of ceiling caved in, bricks and steel crashing like thunder. The floor shook beneath our boots. I hit the ground, mask rattling, air supply hissing. My partner pulled me up, and we stumbled, crawling, choking through the black. Behind us, the fire roared louder, fed by the sudden rush of oxygen. We made it out. Just barely. But Harris didn't. We called his name over and over, even as flames consumed the building. All we got back was the groan of metal, the roar of fire, and the hiss of collapsing walls. Hours later, when the fire was finally under control, the investigators went in. They combed through what was left of the warehouse. Nothing but ash, twisted beams, and rubble. No victims, no squatters, no bodies aside from what they eventually confirmed was Harris. And here's what haunts me the most. They said the place was empty before the fire even started. No one inside. No one to call for help. So whose voice did we hear? It plays back in my head more vividly than the flames, louder than the collapse. A man's voice, hoarse, desperate, echoing through smoke. Help. Sometimes when I'm back at the station alone after a late run, I swear I hear it again, just faintly, like it followed me out.